Chapter 2276. Saying this is already giving us a lot of face. And these 3 years were exchanged by my master, the city lord of Sky Wind Inscription City, using his own inscription master skills. As Song Qing spoke, there was a trace of sadness in his eyes. He looked at Luo Qingtong, and his lips twitched. Then, he felt very dejected in his heart. He said in a low voice, "Qingtong, am I very useless? You are my disciple, and I was the one who shamelessly begged you. I know, with my inscription talent, let alone being your master, I might not even be qualified to be your disciple. I'm really sorry for suddenly calling you here." But, as Song Qing spoke, he sighed heavily and said, "I really have no other way. Master's kindness to me is as heavy as a mountain. In Sky Wind Inscription City, I am the most disappointing one. No matter how hard I try, I can't learn the inscription technique that Master taught me. I'm completely different from you. You can infer many things from one example. However, Master has never turned his back on me." As Song Qing spoke, he bitterly smiled. He looked at Luo Qingtong and said, "Qingtong, I know that rather than saying that I brought you in, it's better to say that you comprehended it on your own. Your talent is peerless and rare. In Sky Wind Inscription City, I don't know how many inscription geniuses I've heard of. I've even heard of some of the top geniuses of the Central Union, but none of them can compare to you. No one can be like you, in an environment like the true Spill Continent, and still be able to comprehend it on your own and cultivate to a high-level inscription master. Qingtong, your future is limitless. In the past, even if you didn't have my guidance, with your talent and ability, you wouldn't have stopped at the entrance. You would have just entered a little later." As Song Qing spoke, he sighed. He looked seriously at Luo Qingtong and said, "But even so, I still want to shamelessly ask you for help. Qingtong, please help me. I can't watch the people of Cold Jade Inscription City take away the inscription tower. I don't want Sky Wind Inscription City to be forced to disband, and I don't want Master to lose the inscription technique that he was so proud of. From now on, he will never be able to inscribe inscriptions again." As Song Qing spoke, his eyes were already filled with tears. At this moment, there was no trace of the mischievous smile on his face when he was joking around in front of Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong frowned and said, "How do you know that I can help you? Your Heavenly Wind Inscription City has so many inscription masters, and I'm sure you don't lack high-level inscription masters as well. Furthermore, they are more powerful than me. If they can't do anything, how do you know I can?" Luo Qingtong couldn't understand why Song Qing would think that she could take back the inscription tower for Heavenly Wind Inscription City. To be able to cause their Heavenly Wind Inscription City to be at a loss, the other party's inscription skills must be extremely powerful, definitely above a high-level inscription master. How long had she been learning inscription techniques? Even if Luo Qingtong was confident that she could learn most of the inscriptions with her pair of blood eyes, Luo Qingtong was confident that she could learn most of the inscriptions. But to be able to learn and to be able to use were two different things. Otherwise, why would Luo Qingtong learn inscription techniques from the beginning? It was because in order to use inscription techniques, not only did one need to know how to inscribe inscription marks, one also needed to have the right amount of energy. Chapter 2277. Luo Qingtong's blood-red eyes could only help her decipher the inscription mark as quickly as possible. She didn't need to spend too much time comprehending and analyzing it. As for the specific usage and power infusion, she still needed to explore and cultivate by herself. It was just like how she cultivated to increase her strength. Therefore, Luo Qingtong couldn't figure out how Song Qing was so sure that she could help him. He didn't hesitate to use the inscription pattern searching technique to summon her from the true Spill Continent. "Of course, it's because of your super strong comprehension ability." Song Qing looked at Luo Qingtong and said, "You little girl, you probably don't know how terrifying your inscription talent is, right? I've never seen someone like you. When you were just a beginner in the inscription pattern technique, you were already able to guide me to a higher level of inscription pattern technique. Do you know what this means? It means that your comprehension ability has long surpassed your own inscription pattern level. It's only because your strength isn't enough that you can't use it. But do you know? Song Cheng looked at Luo Qingtong with a burning gaze. The challenge in the inscription tower is to create a seal through space. Song Cheng said to Luo Qingtong, "You might not understand if I put it that way. I'll explain it to you like this. In other words, in the inscription tower, as long as you have enough comprehension of the inscription pattern technique, you don't need to inject your own strength. You can guide the power of the inscription tower into it and create a seal directly. In other words, the battle in the inscription tower doesn't rely on your own strength, but on your own comprehension. Even if you don't have any strength at the moment, as long as you have a deep enough understanding of the inscription pattern technique, you can use it in the inscription tower. As long as it's an inscription mark that you understand, you can use the power of the inscription tower to manifest and inscribe it. In that case, can you understand?" Song Cheng's words resounded. In an instant, Luo Qingtong's eyes lit up. "You're saying that as long as I can completely comprehend the inscription mark, I can use it in the inscription tower even if I don't have enough strength? So powerful. This inscription pagoda is a rare treasure." However, this was only limited to inscriptionists. Luo Qingtong finally understood why the people of Cold Jade Inscription City wanted this inscription tower so badly. "Yes." Song Cheng nodded his head and said proudly, "The inscription tower was given to our inscription city by the Central Inscription Union. It was the result of the combined efforts of my master and all the ancestors of Heavenly Wind Inscription City. Among all the inscription cities in the 6-star region, only our Sky Wind Inscription City has such an inscription tower. This inscription tower can increase the strength of us inscription masters, allowing us to practice the inscription technique without any restraint. We don't need to waste any of our strength. It's extremely beneficial for us to consolidate our strength and break through bottlenecks. Not only that, I heard that the inscription tower has battle inscription marks left behind by inscription masters of the Central Union. If we can obtain them, we can directly inject energy into them and activate them. Even if it's the lowest level of the inscription of battle, it's equivalent to the strength of a warrior at the 9th level of the human martial realm. It can't be underestimated." Chapter 2278. Human Martial Realm. This was a new name. Luo Qingtong felt that ever since she left the true Spill continent, she had realized just how vast the world was. It was far beyond her imagination. But this was also what she wanted. If it was like the 24th century on Earth, she wouldn't be able to find any opponents. Then what was the point? But now, it was more interesting. As Luo Qingtong thought this, her lips curved up in a smile. It was indescribably evil. Human martial realm. As Song Cheng heard Luo Qingtong ask about this, he simply explained it to her. In any case, she was already in the outer realms. Sooner or later, she would learn about this. And the earlier she knew, the better it would be for her future motivation. It's like this. The hidden world of your true Spill continent is the gateway to your true Spill continent. The powerhouses there are between the Saint Realm and Saint Realm. As Song Cheng spoke, he wanted to tell Luo Qingtong about the division of strength between the Saint Realm and above. However, before he could speak, Luo Qingtong nodded and said, I know. I am already at the Saint Realm. Puff. As Song Cheng spoke, he was thirsty. After all, he had just spoken so much with Luo Qingtong. He was about to take a sip of tea. However, just as he poured himself a cup of tea and was about to continue speaking, he heard Luo Qingtong suddenly say this. He spat out all of the tea in his mouth. Luo Qingtong quickly dodged, but Song Cheng was the one who sprayed himself with tea. However, he didn't care about this. He pulled Luo Qingtong aside and said with wide eyes, "What did you say? What cultivation are you at?" Song Qing thought that he had misheard. His own disciple should have said the Saint Realm. Although rising to the Saint Realm in such a short period of time was truly extraordinary, as he thought of Luo Qingtong's monstrous talent and ability, he was somewhat relieved. However, Luo Qingtong's next words completely shattered his guesses. "Saint Realm." Luo Qingtong faintly said. "Oh, that's not right. You should be at the 9th realm of the Saint Realm." As Luo Qingtong said this, Song Qing was clutching his chest as if he had a heart attack. As he heard Luo Qingtong's words, he calmed down a little. It was impossible. In just a few years, she had been in the true Spill continent, an inferior and barren continent. How could Luo Qingtong possibly be? Just as he thought of this, Luo Qingtong's last sentence rang out. Instantly, he felt unwell. 9th realm. 9th realm. Song Qing clutched his chest and stared at Luo Qingtong with widened eyes. Not only was she at the Saint Realm, but she was at the 9th realm. What kind of tonic did this girl take? In just a few short years, his strength had actually soared to such an extent. Song Qing couldn't believe his own ears. He looked up and down at Luo Qingtong. Although he knew that if he questioned her then it would easily anger his precious disciple, he still couldn't help himself. "No, I must say, my disciple, your strength doesn't seem right." Song Qing looked at Luo Qingtong in a daze. It was only now that he realized that there weren't any fluctuations of strength coming from Luo Qingtong's body. At first, he thought that he had summoned the wrong person. Then, he thought that it was because Luo Qingtong's strength was too low, so he couldn't sense it. Chapter 2279. Not to mention that she was a 9th realm Saint Venerable, she was almost the same as an ordinary person, all right? What was going on? There was an accident. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. It was a long story, so she did not want to tell Song Qing too much. "You will recover very soon." Luo Qingtong's strength was only temporarily gone. As long as she found a way to draw energy into her body again, she would be able to nurture a trace of strength in her body again. By then, she would be able to use her cultivation technique to recover her strength. Hence, she did not feel too burdened when she said it. When Song Qing heard her words, he was so stifled that he almost could not breathe. He was doubting her strength. His precious disciple dismissed him with a simple accident. But then again, what kind of accident could cause Luo Qingtong to lose all her strength? She looked like an ordinary person. If not, he would not have directly confirmed that he had summoned the wrong person. After all, Luo Qingtong's face was full of birthmarks and her weak body. It was hard for Song Qing not to believe it. However, Song Qing felt that Luo Qingtong would not lie to him, and she would not purposely say that her strength was high for the sake of grandiose achievements. So it was true. This girl had really advanced to the 9th realm Saint Venerable. Was it because of this strength that the strength in her body disappeared? After all, it was reasonable for there to be some side effects after suddenly increasing her strength to such a high level. Song Qing thought so and accepted Luo Qingtong's explanation. He sighed in his heart. His precious disciple was indeed different. If other disciples did not see each other for 3 years, they might think that the other person's cultivation had regressed or that their strength had not increased at all. His precious disciple, on the other hand, had directly jumped 30 feet high. The speed of her strength increase was like sitting on a rocket. It was simply frightening. Song Qing said and immediately drank another mouthful of tea to calm himself down. Then, he asked Luo Qingtong, "Are you really okay? Don't force yourself. Tell me directly if you need anything. I can still get many good things in this inscription city." Song Qing patted his chest and said, "All right." Luo Qingtong looked at him and said with a smile, "When I need your help, I will definitely look for you, Master. Luo Qingtong smiled sweetly. She didn't need anything, but in the true Spill continent, Su Yu, Old Man Luo, and Su Xiao did. Since Song Cheng had spoken, Luo Qingtong naturally wouldn't be polite with him. Song Cheng still didn't know how serious the consequences of his careless words were. Now that he heard Luo Qingtong agree, his vanity as a master was greatly satisfied. He finally had a sense of being a master. He thought to himself happily. This precious disciple of his was really too powerful. Every time, it made him feel that this master of his was super useless. Now, he could finally do something for her. Thinking so, Song Ching immediately agreed. Then, he continued to introduce the next division of strength to Luo Qingtong. Since you are already a Saint Venerable, you should know the division of strength above the Saint Venerable realm, right? Seeing Luo Qingtong nod, he immediately continued, the human martial realm I want to talk about is the realm of strength after breaking through to the Saint Venerable realm. In the world, there are 3 great martial realms. Heaven, Earth, and Human. The human martial realm is the lowest, the Earth martial realm is second, and the Sky martial realm is the highest. Each realm is divided into 9 stages. And it is said that above the Sky martial realm, there are even higher realms. Chapter 2280. As Song Ching spoke, there was a tinge of regret in his tone. With his aptitude, it would be lucky if he could reach level 9 of the human martial realm. He didn't dare to hope for a higher realm. So, little girl, do you know what the battle inscription that represents the peak of the human martial realm represents? Battle inscriptions can only be carved by inscriptionists who have reached the human martial realm. The stronger the inscriptionist, the more powerful the battle inscription. At that time, the inscriptionists can look down on all enemies of the same level. However, there are too few people who can balance inscriptions and cultivation. And not everyone has the talent for inscriptions. Therefore, such inscriptionists are extremely rare. They are all in the Central Union. Song Cheng's words made Luo Qingtong's eyes light up. A battle inscription that was comparable to the peak of the human martial realm. Although it could only be used once, it was definitely a great weapon. Everything else aside, Luo Qingtong had a golden ticket to avoid death in the 6-star region and below. Since there was a chance for such a good thing, she must get it. Moreover, Luo Qingtong couldn't ignore Song Ching. Although the other party had shamelessly begged her to be his disciple, his heart was sincere. Otherwise, with Luo Qingtong's temperament, if she didn't want to acknowledge him as her master, what was the use of Song Cheng's shamelessness? For Luo Qingtong, if she didn't want to do something, no one could force her. However, if she wanted to protect someone, she would go even if it was a mountain of swords and a sea of fire. I'm going to the inscription tower. Are they going to do it tomorrow? Luo Qingtong looked at Song Ching. Yes. They have been delaying it for 3 years. I'm afraid they can't wait. When the people of Lengyu Inscription City were mentioned, Song Ching was annoyed. Those people were too cunning. If they hadn't broken the bet, he wouldn't have used this method to call Luo Qingtong over. God knows how much he was afraid that Luo Qingtong would be angry and abandon him as her master. All right. Luo Qingtong nodded and said, then we will go and meet them tomorrow. But before that, Master, I have something to tell you. Your disciple Luo Qingtong hasn't come yet. You summoned the wrong person. As Luo Qingtong said this, Song Ching suddenly let out an sound. He didn't know what Luo Qingtong meant. However, before he could ask, Luo Qingtong had already pressed his hand down. Master, didn't I tell you before? I have enemies in the outer realms. This matter is too complicated, so I won't tell you more about it. Luo Qingtong had always been cautious. She had the inheritance of the Immortal Slayer Palace and now she was going to use her inscription technique to fight against the people of Lengyu Inscription City. Once he won, his reputation would immediately spread. Luo Qingtong didn't want to attract any unnecessary trouble. She would help Song Qing, but not with the identity of Luo Qingtong, but with another identity. At that time, I will have to trouble Master to accept another disciple. Luo Qingtong said with a smile as she looked at Song Qing. When the latter heard this, he immediately understood. He immediately laughed happily and said, "Okay. As long as it is my precious disciple, I will accept as many as you come." In any case, he would only accept his precious disciple. Song Qing naturally wouldn't disagree. "All right." Luo Qingtong looked at him and smiled, "Then Master, quickly prepare an identity for me." Chapter 2281. Sigh. Song Qing hurriedly agreed and then hurriedly went out to prepare. He didn't dare to neglect what his precious disciple wanted to do. Furthermore, Luo Qingtong had already agreed to help him, which made Song Qing even more ecstatic. Others might think that it was ridiculous for him to place his hopes on a disciple, but Song Qing knew that with Luo Qingtong's peerless talent, if there was really someone who could help Tianfeng Inscription City turn the tide, it would only be her. If Luo Qingtong couldn't do it, then Tianfeng Inscription City wouldn't be able to escape this calamity. As he thought about it, he immediately went to prepare. And at this moment, in a luxurious courtyard, the group of people who had left Langyu Inscription City earlier walked in. After the city lord of Langyu Inscription City let the others return to their rooms to rest, he immediately brought a few of his trusted aides to a room. "Master Chen," he said respectfully to an old man in the room with a flattering expression, "we can take back the inscription tower tomorrow." "Thank you, Master Chen, for helping our Langyu Inscription City. Otherwise, our Langyu Inscription City wouldn't have been able to take the inscription tower from Tianfeng Inscription City." As the city lord of Langyu Inscription City said this, he was extremely proud in his heart. Their Langyu Inscription City's strength had always been below Tianfeng Inscription City, especially himself. He was absolutely no match for the city lord of Tianfeng Inscription City. The other party's strength was tyrannical and his inscription ability was first-rate. It was said that he could break through the level of an advanced rank 9 inscription master at any time and enter the level of a spirit seal master. At that time, he would be able to condense his natal inscription mark and have the qualifications to cultivate battle inscriptions. Of course, it wasn't that easy to cultivate battle inscriptions. He still had to raise his strength to the human martial realm or above. Even so, the other party's inscription ability completely crushed him. This inscription tower had been in Tianfeng Inscription City for who knows how many years, but no one had ever succeeded in seizing it. However, there was someone helping them in Langyu Inscription City. Thinking about it, the city lord of Langyu Inscription City felt even more proud. He looked at the old man opposite him. This Master Chen suddenly appeared in their Langyu Inscription City and said that he would help them seize the inscription tower in Tianfeng Inscription City. At that time, City Lord Lang Yuan thought that he was joking. However, the latter had really defeated the Heavenly Wind City's City Lord in the Inscription Tower's battle. If it wasn't for the latter destroying the inscription mark that he was about to successfully condense and temporarily increasing his comprehension of inscriptions, they would have already won. However, because the Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord destroyed his own inscription mark, he was basically crippled. Even if his inscription ability was still there, what was the use if he couldn't use it? This time, the inscription tower would definitely be theirs. Thinking about this, the city lord of Langyu Inscription City had a complacent expression on his face, and he was full of joy. Master Chen looked up at him and snorted, "Are you sure? There won't be any changes? For example, another bet or something?" Hearing this, Lang Yu's face immediately darkened. When he thought of the bet he had agreed to with Song Qing in a moment of stupidity, he felt a heart attack. Chapter 2282. Who would have thought that the joke in Tianfeng Inscription City, who had no talent in inscriptions, would actually be able to learn inscription techniques within 12 years. He had clearly stayed in Tianfeng Inscription City for so many years, but he still hadn't learned it. Even if someone like the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord personally taught him, he still couldn't do it. The so-called rotten wood can't be carved was probably referring to Song City. In the end, after signing the bet with him, he went out to seek a breakthrough. In the end, he actually succeeded. Simply Motherf *Ker. Lengyu Inscription City Lord felt a wave of depression in his heart. Then, he hurriedly said to the old man, "Master Qin, don't worry. There definitely won't be any problems this time." If it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid that Song City would cause trouble again, he wouldn't have even gone to look when the people of Tianfeng Inscription City set up some inscription man-seeking array. However, the final result was just as he had expected. It was just a trick to scare people and stall for time. It was obvious that the people of Tianfeng Inscription City had already run out of ideas and had no other choice. "I guarantee that the inscription tower will be ours tomorrow. And the battle inscription mark at the peak of the human martial realm that you want will definitely be yours," Lengyu Inscription City Lord said with a flattering expression. When this Master Qin came to help them, he had pointed out that he wanted the battle inscription mark. Since Lengyu Inscription City Lord could obtain the inscription tower, he naturally wouldn't refuse. After all, no matter how precious the battle inscription was, it couldn't be more precious than the inscription tower. However, he actually couldn't figure out why the other party didn't directly go to Tianfeng Inscription City to request to join and then directly enter the inscription tower to seize the inscription mark. After all, the people of Tianfeng Inscription City didn't stop the people of Inscription City from entering to seize the inscription mark. The city lord of Tianfeng Inscription City even advocated for the capable. As long as the other party had the ability to take away the battle inscription mark, the people of Tianfeng Inscription City definitely wouldn't stop him. Lengyu Inscription City Lord felt that it was strange. However, when he thought about how powerful the other party was and how mysterious his background was, he probably didn't want to join Tianfeng Inscription City. After all, he had invited the other party to join their Lengyu Inscription City many times, but the other party had rejected him. As he thought about it, he didn't think about it anymore. However, Lengyu Inscription City Lord didn't know that as he spoke, a strange light flashed in the depths of Master Chen's eyes. Battle inscription at the peak of the human martial arts realm. That kind of trash was not his target. His target was something else hidden in the inscription tower. If he hadn't been lucky enough to know the whereabouts of that item, how could a heaven-grade spirit seal master appear in such a small 6-star domain? Why would he fight for the inscription tower for such a lousy inscription city? If it wasn't for him being afraid of exposing himself too much and attracting unnecessary trouble, he would have been able to defeat the city lord of Heavenwind Inscription City with a flick of his finger. How could he have given the city lord of Heavenwind Inscription City the chance to make a comeback at the last moment? With that thought in mind, Master Qin snorted. Losing to someone who hadn't completely condensed his inscription mark was the greatest humiliation of his life. Fortunately, no one here knew of his identity. Once he obtained that item, he would immediately leave this place. As for the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City, they naturally had to pay the price for this humiliation. Chapter 2283. Humph. As Master Qin thought about it, he waved his hand and asked Leng Yu and the others to leave his room. On the other side, after Luo Qingtong asked Song Qing to prepare an identity for her, she also asked him to prepare a residence for her in Tianfeng Inscription City. She asked Song Qing to send the items to her residence after he finished preparing her identity and documents. Luo Qingtong put on a veil hat and went out. "Master, where are you going?" Little Pig didn't show up when she was talking to Song Qing earlier. When he saw Luo Qingtong leaving with the veil hat, he immediately poked his head out of Luo Qingtong's bosom and asked curiously. "I'm going to prepare some things." Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. She had no strength and her blood eyes were limited. Although Song Ching said that the inscription tower didn't care about strength and only relied on the comprehension of inscriptions, Luo Qingtong liked to plan ahead. Moreover, she didn't know if the power in the tower could support the operation of her blood eyes. Since Luo Qingtong promised Song Ching to help, she would do her best. Moreover, she didn't want any accidents to happen in the inscription tower. That place was a place she wasn't familiar with. Without strength, she didn't feel safe at all. Oh. Little Pig nodded and then asked, "Then why don't you ask your master to prepare it? Wasn't it the most cost-effective and reliable thing to ask him for the items in Tianfeng Inscription City? It's too troublesome." Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. Of course, she knew that Song Ching was the most convenient. However, he had already prepared an identity for her. Moreover, she wanted to hide her identity and couldn't let Song Ching do everything. Otherwise, if someone were to keep an eye on him, they would be able to find out everything. Luo Qingtong couldn't let others associate her with the girls summoned by Song Ching. Thus, other than having Song Ching take care of her identity, she had to take care of everything else herself. Luo Qingtong put on the veil hat and walked into a pharmacy. She quickly prepared the herbs she needed. The medicinal herbs she concocted were enlightenment spirit pills that could help her draw qi into her body as quickly as possible. This kind of medicinal pill Luo Qingtong used to give a lot of people in the Luo family's iron army. She didn't expect that one day she would give it to herself. Originally, according to her inventory in the True Spill continent, there should have been a lot of materials needed to refine the enlightenment spirit pill in her trash ring. However, what Luo Qingtong needed was to be able to fully comprehend the spiritual aura and draw it into her body within a day. After all, tomorrow was the day when the people from Cold Jade Inscription City would come to retrieve the inscription tower. It was obviously unrealistic to ask the people of Cold Jade Inscription City to delay the date of taking away the inscription tower. Luo Qingtong could only work on the effects of the enlightenment spirit pill. In order for the enlightenment spirit pill's effects to be good, the medicinal power of the medicinal herbs needed to be rich and of a high grade. With such conditions, the medicinal herbs in Luo Qingtong's waist ring did not meet the requirements. On the contrary, Sky Wind Inscription City was a city in a 6-star region. Even if the medicinal herbs were of the lowest grade, the medicinal power contained in them could instantly kill the high-grade medicinal herbs in the True Spill continent. Therefore, Luo Qingtong directly went to the pharmacy in Sky Wind Inscription City to purchase. The management of Sky Wind Inscription City was excellent. Luo Qingtong didn't encounter anything bad along the way. The shopkeeper of the pharmacy was also very enthusiastic. Chapter 2284. When Luo Qingtong was about to pay, he waved his hand and said, "Forget it, you're just a little girl. Forget about this bit of medicine money. It's not a big deal." As he spoke, he sighed and said, "Sigh, this Heavenly Wind Inscription City might be disbanded tomorrow. My pharmacy might not be able to continue operating at that time. After all, the other inscription cities don't have a good person like Old City Lord Zhang. A small shop like ours can only survive in a place like Heavenly Wind Inscription City. If it was any other inscription city, it would have long been swallowed up by those rich and overbearing shops." The shopkeeper of the pharmacy waved his hand and said, "Seeing that it's not easy for a little girl like you, I'll treat it as doing a good deed today. After all, if we can open for one more day, it's one more day." As the shopkeeper of the pharmacy spoke, he sighed heavily. A small shop like theirs couldn't be compared to a big shop. A big shop had an alchemist overseeing it, so they could do well wherever they went. However, a small shop like theirs, once they left the place where they grew up and went to another city, it would be very easy for them to be squeezed out of existence by others. Not to mention that the other cities weren't as benevolent as Heavenly Wind Inscription City, with the Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord protecting them. If they were to go to another place, even if they were to take root, it would be very easy for others to maliciously squeeze and swallow them up. Thus, the shopkeeper of the pharmacy had already made preparations for this to be the last day of business. He looked at Luo Qingtong, who was wearing a veil hat, and waved his hand. "All right, little girl, let's go." Luo Qingtong smiled when she heard this. She didn't insist on paying and only took out something from her trash ring and placed it on the counter. "Uncle, don't worry. Heavenly Wind Inscription City won't fall." She turned around and left. Hearing this, the shopkeeper of the pharmacy was stunned for a moment. Then, he smiled and shook his head as he looked at Luo Qingtong's departing figure. "Little girl, you're too naive." The shopkeeper of the pharmacy didn't take Luo Qingtong's words to heart. The other party probably wasn't from Heavenly Wind Inscription City. Otherwise, he would not know how powerful Cold Jade Inscription City was. The other party should have taken away the Inscription Tower 3 years ago. And Heavenly Wind Inscription City should have been disbanded at that time. Sigh, I hope a miracle. As he spoke, his gaze suddenly landed on the things that Luo Qingtong had placed on the counter. Then, he was stunned. This. He looked at a prescription on the counter to be a prescription. On it, the steps to concoct this medicinal liquid were written in detail. From when to add the herbs, when to start the fusion, and what color represented the success of the fusion, all of it was very clear. It could be said that as long as there was this prescription, even an ignorant person would be able to refine the medicinal liquid on the prescription. 2. He knew very well in his heart that even an alchemist who had already become a grandmaster might not be able to take out such a prescription. The shopkeeper of the pharmacy thought with his mouth wide open and hurriedly rushed out. However, at this time, there was no trace of Luo Qingtong on the street. The young girl had already left after leaving the pharmacy. That prescription was just one of the prescriptions that she had casually taken out from the Empire of Qin's Academy of Medicine students. Back then, she had used this method to deal with the students of the Academy of Medicine and had written countless prescriptions. Chapter 2285. After Luo Qingtong went back, she prepared to start refining pills. She set up layers of arrays in her room. After making sure that no one could disturb her while she was refining pills, she took out the square immortal cauldron from her waist ring. This square immortal cauldron had been in Luo Qingtong's waist ring for a long time. With Luo Qingtong's previous alchemy strength, she no longer needed to use the square immortal cauldron to refine pills. However, this time, she had no strength and could not open her blood eye. To refine an excellent enlightenment spirit pill without wasting the medicinal power, she naturally needed to use the square immortal cauldron. Only this immortal cauldron could accurately control the furnace fire inside when Luo Qingtong had no strength and refine the medicinal power of the medicinal herbs inside just right. Luo Qingtong placed the medicinal herbs she bought from the pharmacy into the square immortal cauldron and made a seal with her hand. In an instant, the entire pill furnace lit up fiercely. The raging flames inside instantly soared up. There was no need for Luo Qingtong to use any of her strength. According to the steps of refining the enlightenment spirit pill, Luo Qingtong added the medicinal herbs she needed bit by bit. Under her precise control, even without the help of her blood, Luo Qingtong still succeeded in refining the enlightenment spirit pill. It was just that the retention rate of the medicinal power was not as good as when Luo Qingtong opened her blood eye, but it was still 90%. Luo Qingtong looked very satisfied. After all, the pills on the market that reached this level were already considered top grade. Above that level, even alchemy grandmasters would not dare to say that they were confident. Of course, if Luo Qingtong opened her blood eye, she would be able to achieve 100% retention rate. In that case, the medicinal effect would be even better. But now, 90% was already very good. It was enough for Luo Qingtong to fully comprehend the spirit qi before tomorrow, draw the spirit qi into her body again, and recover her strength. Luo Qingtong took out the Enlightenment Spirit Pill from the square immortal cauldron and swallowed it. Boom! As soon as the medicinal pill entered her body, the medicinal power inside began to circulate throughout Luo Qingtong's limbs and body. As the medicinal effects flowed through Luo Qingtong's body, she sat down cross-legged and carefully sensed the spiritual aura around her. Under the effect of these medicinal herbs, Luo Qingtong's sensitivity to the surrounding spiritual energy greatly increased. The Enlightenment Spirit Pill was used to help martial artists open up their meridians and increase their perception of spirit qi. From there, they would be able to draw spirit qi into their bodies and step onto the path of cultivation. A single Enlightenment Spirit Pill was enough to allow ordinary people to ignore the difference in talent. It allowed those who did not have talent and could not sense the existence of spiritual energy around them to become warriors. As for Luo Qingtong's Enlightenment Spirit Pill, it was an enhanced version of an ordinary Enlightenment Spirit Pill. As soon as this Enlightenment Spirit Pill entered her mouth, the attributes and types of the spirit qi were completely presented in front of Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtong circulated the lowest level of martial artist entry-level techniques and slowly drew the spirit qi that was suitable for martial artists to cultivate into her body. As for the spirit qi that was not suitable for martial artists to cultivate, she excluded it. This process would normally take a few months or even a year for talented martial artists. With the help of the Enlightenment Spirit Pill, Luo Qingtong could easily distinguish the spirit qi and draw it into her body very quickly. Chapter 2286. The spirit qi entered Luo Qingtong's body. Soon, the cultivation technique in Luo Qingtong's body was activated. It quickly carried the spirit qi around in Luo Qingtong's body. 1 round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds. 36 rounds. After 1 round of circulation, Luo Qingtong's energy center produced a strand of power. Boom! The moment this strand of power appeared, Luo Qingtong's spirit qi and medicinal power were mobilized. Soon, the spirit qi in the girl's body became stronger and stronger. The spirit qi circulation in her body also became faster and faster. Boom! 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 The spirit qi in Luo Qingtong's meridian surged like waves in the sea and roared like thunder and dragons. Waves of dragon and tiger roars were emitted from her body. Then, each wave was louder than the previous one, and each wave followed the previous one. Luo Qingtong's skin rippled violently due to the thunderous sound of the tide of power. Boom! 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 The spirit qi in Luo Qingtong's body became stronger and stronger. In the next second, bam! The spirit qi in Luo Qingtong's body exploded. In an instant, countless spirit qi flew in all directions. In just a moment, the entire room shook. This was a residence that Song Qing had specially prepared for her. Ordinary venerables would not be able to destroy this room. Not to mention the array formation that Luo Qingtong had set up. The peak of the Holy Venerate Realm. I'm about to step into the Venerate Realm. Luo Qingtong smiled and held her hand. She felt the surging power in her body. It felt so good to have her strength back. And this time, she had clearly surpassed the 9th Holy Venerate Realm and could break through to the Venerate Realm at any time. Although she was still a little short, Luo Qingtong was not in a hurry. After all, she had already reached this level. It was only a matter of time before she entered the Venerate Realm. The absorption of her spirit qi this time brought her many benefits. In comparison, temporarily losing her spirit qi for a period of time and being called trash was no big deal. Luo Qingtong's lips curled up as she thought of this. She looked up at the sky outside. Seeing that it was still dark, she immediately raised her hand and prepared to put away the square immortal cauldron. However, just as she was about to move, she suddenly caught a glimpse of a certain place in the square immortal cauldron from the corner of her eye. Luo Qingtong's hand stopped. The square immortal cauldron. The square immortal cauldron was in the square immortal cauldron was in the square immortal cauldron. The spirit. When Luo Qingtong obtained this square immortal cauldron, she knew that this immortal cauldron was extraordinary. However, she was not strong enough at that time, so she did not open this immortal cauldron. Gradually, she forgot about the immortal cauldron. Now that she saw that place again, Luo Qingtong immediately recalled what had happened. At that time, her spirit qi was too weak. Now that she was a holy venerate, or even close to it, could she open the square immortal cauldron spirit qi? Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed with a bloody light as she thought of this. She sucked the square immortal cauldron in front of her and carefully examined it. Then, her bloody eyes flashed. Chapter 2287. Bang! Luo Qingtong struck the seal in her hand and directly slapped the Sun Moon Mountain River diagram of the square immortal cauldron. Very quickly, waves of white light emerged from the divine cauldron. The aura of these white lights was very powerful, and they constantly wandered around the square immortal cauldron. Luo Qingtong's power was greatly hindered. The bloody light in her eyes flickered. Very quickly, she resisted the power of these white lights and slapped out 2 more times. In an instant, with a boom, the aura of this divine cauldron suddenly flourished. Then, in the next second, caw. The entire cauldron suddenly rotated from nearly 1/3 of the top of the cauldron. The entire cauldron split into 2 halves in an instant, revealing a space that looked like a mezzanine. The amazing thing was that this space clearly existed in the cauldron, but before Luo Qingtong opened it, she couldn't see the existence of this space in the entire square immortal cauldron. At this moment, the mezzanine of the divine cauldron opened, and Luo Qingtong could see the appearance of this space. Illusory form pill. Luo Qingtong looked at the pill formula that was revealed and raised her hand to take it out. At the same time, there was a medicinal herb that emitted an extremely strong medicinal power. The medicinal power contained in this medicinal herb was so strong that it almost forced Luo Qingtong to take 2 steps back. One had to know that the aura of medicinal power was the softest. Under normal circumstances, it didn't have any offensive power. However, the medicinal power emitted by the medicinal herb in front of Luo Qingtong was actually like an exposed sword aura, full of offensive power and pressure. It could be seen that the grade of this medicinal herb was very high. It was definitely not an ordinary item. Could it be a divine item of heaven and earth? Luo Qingtong looked at this medicinal herb and guessed in her heart. In this world, there were some top-grade medicinal herbs that were born naturally. Regardless of grade or medicinal power, they were not comparable to ordinary high-grade medicinal herbs. These medicinal herbs already contained spirituality. There were even medicinal herbs that were tens of millions of years old that could transform into a human form. They were extremely rare. Of course, just like plants that had turned into spirits, it was extremely difficult for these medicinal herbs to cultivate into a human form. However, the spirituality in their bodies was innate. It could be said that they were blessed by the heavens. Luo Qingtong looked at this medicinal herb and secretly guessed whether this medicinal herb was such a divine item of heaven and earth or not. However, upon closer inspection, this medicinal herb seemed to be only a small section. Even if it was a divine item of heaven and earth, it would only be a small part of its body. It contained a limited amount of spirituality, and it couldn't be cultivated. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she frowned and felt a little regretful. At this moment, she heard Little Pig's blood-weeping parasol tree. Little Pig stared at the herb that looked like a dried-up twig. The other party's branches were thick and strong, twisting and turning in a spiral. Looking at it, there was a kind of majestic and boundless aura was. On. Holy shit. Holy shit. This is the true blood of a phoenix that has successfully undergone nirvana. Chapter 2288. The blood-weeping parasol tree actually contained the true blood of a phoenix that had successfully undergone nirvana. The phoenix itself was already an ancient divine beast. After successfully undergoing nirvana, it was close to the level of a divine beast of heaven and earth. Even the realm beast, which was born and nurtured by the heavens and earth, was the heavenly Tao's favorite, could be compared to it. A phoenix that had successfully undergone nirvana was equivalent to surpassing the level of an ancient divine beast and reaching a whole new realm. Who would have thought that the blood-weeping parasol tree actually contained the true blood of a phoenix that had successfully undergone nirvana? If it was refined into a pill and swallowed, the person would immediately obtain the power of the raging true fire that was comparable to a phoenix's. Moreover, because it was inherited from a phoenix that had successfully undergone nirvana, the power of the raging true fire was even greater than any fire element power in the world. Sigh, it's a pity that there's too little true blood of a phoenix in it. It's not enough to form a pill. Little Pig was excited when he discovered that the blood-weeping parasol tree contained very little true blood of a phoenix. There was only a little on the surface of the blood-weeping parasol tree, and the insides weren't soaked. Even if this true blood of a phoenix was refined, it still wasn't enough to form a pill. What a pity. Little Pig's excited expression instantly disappeared when he thought of this. What the hell was worse than seeing a treasure, only to discover that it was just an empty shell when you eagerly rushed up to it? You could only look at it to satisfy your craving, but couldn't use it. Little Pig's ears, which had been raised up, instantly drooped down like a frosted eggplant. On the other hand, Luo Qingtong glanced at the blood-weeping parasol tree before looking at the pill recipe in her hand. Then, her lips curled up as she said, "That's right. I'm afraid this blood-weeping parasol tree isn't used to refine the pill you mentioned. It's used to refine the illusory form pill." As she spoke, she handed the pill recipe in her hand to Little Pig. Little Pig caught the pill recipe with his two little hooves and glanced at it. Then, his eyes widened. Holy crap, this person is a genius. Just who was the one who developed this pill? It's 2F** King. Awesome. Little Pig's eyes widened as he looked at the pill recipe's introduction. The words written on it were, illusory form pill, origin pill. It can be infused with the blood of spirit beasts of heaven and earth, and after consuming it, it can transform into the original form of a spirit beast. Depending on the strength of the medicinal herbs and the level of the transformed spirit beast, one could obtain 1/10 to 1/5 of the transformed spirit beast's strength. The time limit was 1 hour. Oh my god. This illusionary form pill was simply awesome to the heavens. No wonder there was a blood-weeping parasol tree beside this pill formula. Didn't this mean that if Luo Qingtong was able to refine the medicinal pills on the list with the true blood of the phoenix from the blood-weeping parasol tree, she could transform into the appearance of the phoenix that had successfully undergone nirvana and possess at least 1/10 of its original strength? F***ck. That was awesome. Little Pig's eyes were wide open. A phoenix's true body that had successfully undergone nirvana, if it was one of the best in the Phoenix clan, it would have strength that was not inferior to its true body. Wow, what the F***ck. Did that woman Feng Wan know what kind of treasure she had given to his master? She probably didn't know, otherwise, she would have vomited blood and died from anger. Ha ha ha. Little Pig laughed as he thought about it. Chapter 2289. But soon, it smacked its lips and said regretfully, "Unfortunately, the aura of this blood-weeping parasol tree is too strong. With your current strength, you still can't refine the true phoenix blood in it." She would only have a chance when she reached the human martial realm. After all, the true phoenix blood was extremely powerful and contained the will of the true phoenix fire. Moreover, it was the blood of a phoenix that had successfully undergone nirvana. A single drop was enough to burn mountains and overturn seas. However, that was the blood essence of a phoenix's heart. The blood in the parasol tree was only the sporadic blood that was spat out when the phoenix underwent nirvana. It didn't possess that kind of power. Otherwise, not to mention the human martial realm, even if Luo Qingtong broke through to the sky martial realm, she might not be able to refine the true phoenix blood in it. This was based on the fact that Luo Qingtong's tyrannical strength far surpassed ordinary sky martial realm experts and the assistance of the blood eye. If it was an ordinary sky martial realm expert, just touching the true phoenix blood would burn them to ashes, let alone refining it. Therefore, even if there was a heavenly treasure, one needed the corresponding strength to possess it. Now, the sporadic blood in the blood-weeping parasol tree was just right. When Luo Qingtong's strength increased, she could refine it into a pill. At that time, Luo Qingtong's trump card would be unimaginably great. She would be able to do whatever she wanted in this starry sky and countless starfields. Little Pig was overjoyed when he thought of this. The stronger Luo Qingtong was, the more cocky he could be. When he thought of how he could do whatever he wanted even if he couldn't recover the power of his original body for the time being, he was overjoyed and completely forgot about his previous state. Ao, Master, this is a good treasure. Quickly put it away. Little Pig said to Luo Qingtong with glowing eyes. They couldn't lose such a good treasure. After all, where would they find the true phoenix blood if it wasn't in this cauldron? Even if they found other spiritual beasts, could their strength compare to the true phoenix blood of the true phoenix? What a joke! Even if they could refine a pill that could activate 50% of the true phoenix's original body strength, it wouldn't be as powerful as 1% of the true phoenix's strength. Little Pig felt smug in his heart. Luo Qingtong was naturally aware of the benefits. After looking through the pill formula for the illusory form pill, she locked it together with the blood-weeping parasol tree back into the interlayer of the square immortal cauldron. It was safest to place such a treasure in the square immortal cauldron. After all, in this world, other than Luo Qingtong who knew the method and could easily open it, others might not be able to open it even if they obtained the divine cauldron. Not to mention that they might not even know that there was an interlayer in the divine cauldron. After Luo Qingtong sealed up the divine furnace base, she didn't put it away. Instead, she opened the lid of the furnace once more. She thought for a moment, and then took out some high-level herbs from the true spill continent from her trash ring. Master, what are you doing? Little Pig watched as she reignited the flames in the square immortal cauldron and tried to throw the herbs into the cauldron. He was stunned. Hadn't the enlightenment spirit pill been successfully refined? Luo Qingtong had already recovered her strength. What pill was she refining now? It's almost dawn. Chapter 2290. At this time, shouldn't she be tidying up and preparing for the battle at the inscription tower? There's no hurry. Luo Qingtong's eyes dimmed. She looked at the flames rising from the square immortal cauldron, and a bloody light flashed in her eyes. Soon, the image of the illusory pill recipe that she had imprinted in her pupils with her eye technique began to spin in her eyes. Countless scenes appeared in front of Luo Qingtong. With the help of her eye technique, Luo Qingtong quickly extracted the most crucial elements from the illusory pill recipe. Then, she searched through the high-grade herbs she had from the true spill continent. The medicinal efficacy of these herbs could not be compared to the low-grade herbs in the heavenly wind region, but Luo Qingtong did not need them to be very effective. After all, the illusory pill was a origin pill. Ordinary herbs could not completely replicate its medicinal efficacy. Even the top-grade herbs in the heavenly wind region could not. But Luo Qingtong did not want to refine the complete illusory pill. She only needed a small part of its medicinal efficacy. After the initial decomposition, combination, deduction, and evolution, Luo Qingtong quickly came up with a brand new pill recipe. The medicinal efficacy and elements of this pill recipe could be obtained through Luo Qingtong's blood-red eyes and superimposed on the high-grade herbs she had from the true spill continent. It was like the fusion of red and blue, and finally evolved into a purple color. Luo Qingtong superimposed the medicinal efficacy and elements of the various herbs she had in her hands. Soon, she had extracted the medicinal elements she needed. This process was completely inconceivable for an ordinary alchemist. Because for an alchemist, the pill recipe determined the medicinal ingredients, and at the same time, it also determined what kind of pill could be refined. Like Luo Qingtong, taking herbs that did not belong to the pill recipe, extracting the medicinal elements from them, and combining them at will, was absolutely impossible. Because no one had Luo Qingtong's blood-red eyes, which could see through everything and directly strike at the essence. Phew! It feels so good to have my strength restored. Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. She grabbed the pill from the four-sided immortal cauldron. The pill was round and small, and its appearance and aura were somewhat similar to the pill described in the illusory form pill formula, but they were not exactly the same. If there was any difference, it would probably be the miniature version of the illusory form pill, the mini-castrated version. Little Pig was dumbfounded as he watched Luo Qingtong refine the pill from the square immortal cauldron. When he saw the pill in Luo Qingtong's hand, his eyes widened. You. Illusion pill. It pointed at the pill in Luo Qingtong's hand, and its jaw almost dropped. How was this possible? That was an origin pill. How could Luo Qingtong possibly refine it? Even if she could understand the pill formula with a single glance, the medicinal ingredients recorded in the formula were all extremely rare. It might not even exist in the heavenly wind region, and it might only exist in the star domains of 3 stars and above. No matter how capable Luo Qingtong was, without the corresponding medicinal ingredients, it was impossible to refine such a pill, right? Little Pig's beady eyes widened. Of course not. Luo Qingtong glanced at him. Did this guy think he was the reincarnation of a god? Chapter 2291. Without enough high-grade medicinal ingredients, it was impossible to refine the complete version of the phantom pill. If she was really that awesome, why would she need to level up? She could destroy the heavens in a matter of minutes. Luo Qingtong was speechless. Although this pill wasn't the phantom pill, it was modified by Luo Qingtong according to the effects of the phantom pill. She removed the effect of refining the phantom pill with the blood of heaven and earth spirit beasts and changed it into another effect. The other effect was very suitable for Luo Qingtong to hide her identity. Luo Qingtong looked at the pill in her hand and said with a mysterious smile, "This pill will be called the small phantom pill." She didn't expect that there would be a pill like the phantom pill in this world. With that thought, Luo Qingtong swallowed the elixir. In an instant, Little Pig saw the changes on her body at a speed visible to the naked eye. Plop! Because Little Pig was too shocked, he fell from Luo Qingtong's shoulder and heavily fell on his butt. If it was any other time, he would have already cried out. However, at this moment, because it was too shocked and incredulous, its eyes were wide open, and it forgot that its butt was hurting from the fall. Oh my God! You! When Little Pig's voice sounded out, there were already people impatiently rushing over to the inscription plaza at the western end of Heavenly Wind Inscription City as the sky lit up. Today was the day that the people of Lengyu Inscription City took away the inscription tower. The inscription tower was located beside the westernmost inscription plaza. It was the place where the inscription masters of Heavenly Wind Inscription City gathered early in the morning. At this moment, other than the inscription masters of Heavenly Wind Inscription City, there were other people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City. As a city, Heavenly Wind Inscription City naturally didn't only have inscription masters. There were also many ordinary people, cultivators, and soul cultivators. These people relied on Heavenly Wind Inscription City to survive. Now that the inscription tower was going to be taken away by the people of Lengyu Inscription City, they were naturally heartbroken. Not to mention that Heavenly Wind Inscription City was going to be disbanded. From now on, there would be no more Heavenly Wind Inscription City in the Heavenly Wind region. Everyone was heartbroken, but there was nothing they could do. Unless they could defeat the people of Lengyu Inscription City and take back the Inscription Tower, the owner of the Inscription Tower would definitely change. But if they could defeat the people of Lengyu Inscription City, why would they need to rely on the bet in Song City to escape from the owner change 3 years ago? The City Lord of Heavenly Wind Inscription City had been severely injured in the previous Inscription Tower battle and was unable to participate in the battle. As for the other Inscription Masters, none of them could surpass him in terms of inscription attainments. Inscription Masters of Lengyu City. Originally, by relying on Song City's bet, they could have avoided the challenge of the Inscription Tower 3 years ago. 12 years later, they might have been able to nurture a person who could take on Lengyu's Inscription City alone. But who would have thought that the people of Lengyu Inscription City would act shamelessly and admit that they lost the bet? In reality, they used the loophole in the bet to say that the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City didn't give up the challenge. They wanted to challenge again 1 year later. Chapter 2292. But even so, the time they needed was far from enough. And the savior that Song Qing spoke of was summoned wrongly. Although no one placed their hopes on the disciple that he spoke of, they still held on to a trace of hope. But at this moment, this sliver of hope was shattered. Everyone's hearts were filled with sadness. While the people from Heavenly Wind Inscription City were gathering, the people from Lengyu Inscription City also arrived when the sky was completely bright. They stepped on the morning mist and arrived. Looking at the towering and majestic Inscription Tower in front of them, a trace of greed flashed across the eyes of Lengyu Inscription City's City Lord and the others. Then, they looked at the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City who had sorrowful and helpless expressions and said, "Ha! Everyone from Heavenly Wind Inscription City, it would be impolite for us to refuse this Inscription Tower." As he spoke, he laughed complacently. Then, he waved his hand and was about to let someone take over the Inscription Tower and bring it back to Lengyu Inscription City. After all, such a magic tool naturally had a way to fly in the air. Lengyu Inscription City's City Lord didn't have to worry about how to bring it back to his city. When the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City heard his words, the sorrow in their hearts was indescribable. And the shopkeeper of the pharmacy who had received Luo Qingtong's prescription and heard her say that Heavenly Wind Inscription City would not fall was also in the crowd. He was full of hope as he waited for a miracle to happen. However, until the people of Lengyu Inscription City arrived, there was still no change in Heavenly Wind Inscription City. It was still the same people. A miracle did not happen. Sigh, how could this be? That little senior clearly said that Heavenly Wind Inscription City would not fall. His voice was muttering, completely unable to accept such an outcome. Senior expert, that was his impression of Luo Qingtong. Ever since the young girl gave him the prescription, the shopkeeper of the pharmacy had regarded Luo Qingtong as a reclusive senior expert. He believed her words without a doubt. However, he had been waiting for this moment, but a miracle did not happen. As for the shopkeepers behind him, who relied on the Heavenly Wind Inscription City to survive, they were even more sobbing. At this moment, Song Qing stood out from Heavenly Wind Inscription City's group. Wait! Song Qing was panicking to death. Where was his precious disciple? She said that she wanted him to get her an identity and sent her to her place before disappearing. Luo Qingtong's room was covered with layers of array formations, including illusory array and maze array. Song Qing could not find Luo Qingtong, so he naturally thought that she was not in her room. Before he came to the Inscription Plaza, he had almost turned the entire Heavenly Wind Inscription City upside down, but there was still no sign of Luo Qingtong. If Song Qing didn't know his disciple's temperament, he would have thought that his disciple had run away because the task was too difficult. Although he didn't know why Luo Qingtong hadn't arrived yet, for the sake of Heavenly Wind Inscription City and Inscription Pagoda, Song Qing still braced himself and stood out. People of Langyu Inscription City, have you all forgotten something? He looked at Langyu Inscription City's city lord and the others and shouted sternly, "This inscription pagoda can only be taken away after a challenge. Aren't you all being too impatient? Oh, my disciple, come back quickly." Song Qing scolded sternly while praying in his heart that Luo Qingtong would hurry over. With his understanding of Luo Qingtong, the young girl would definitely do what she promised and would definitely rush over. He hoped that she would hurry up. Chapter 2293. The people of Langyu Inscription City immediately looked at him. Yo! Song Qing, is there something wrong with your head? A person from Langyu Inscription City said with a fake smile, "You want to challenge our Langyu Inscription City with just a group of defeated soldiers? I'm afraid you've forgotten why you made that 12-year bet with us, right?" The person from Langyu Inscription City said as he sneered and looked at the group of people from Tianfeng Inscription City with disdain. Ever since the city lord of Tianfeng Inscription City was injured by Master Qin, the inscription tower in Tianfeng Inscription City was already in the bag of their Langyu Inscription City. Now that the people of Langyu Inscription City had come to take the inscription tower, the people of Tianfeng Inscription City actually wanted to challenge them. They were simply overestimating themselves. The group of people from Tianfeng Inscription City also looked at Song Qing in confusion. They had no way of winning against the people of Langyu Inscription City. Song Chang's challenge was just to give the people of Langyu Inscription City another chance to humiliate them. Why would he do that? A group of inscription masters beside the city lord of Tianfeng Inscription City wanted to stand out and stop Song Qing, but they were stopped by old city lord Zhang. Forget it. He coughed lightly and waved his hand. It's rare for Qing to have such intentions. He wants to fight for the last bit of dignity for the people of Tianfeng Inscription City. Let's not stop him. Actually, even for me, I really can't bear to give up the inscription tower without even competing. As he spoke, he coughed violently, but his bent back slowly straightened bit by bit. He returned to his previous appearance before his life inscription mark was destroyed. His face was flushed red, but he forcefully suppressed the injuries in his body and returned to his previous glory. Teacher. City Lord. Looking at the appearance of the city lord of Tianfeng Inscription City, the people of Tianfeng Inscription City felt something in their hearts and immediately cried out. They knew in their hearts that the city lord of Tianfeng Inscription City had clearly decided to fight with the people of Langyu Inscription City to the end. Even if he lost in the end, he would never give up. Sure enough, as soon as they spoke, the city lord's voice continued to ring out. People of Sky Wind Inscription City, get ready. As his voice rang out, Tianfeng Inscription City Lord directly stood in front of Song Qing. His back was straight and his face was filled with arrogance as he looked at Langyu Inscription City Lord and the others. Lu Zhitong, your people from Langyu City want to take away the inscription tower from our Heavenly Wind Inscription City. Sure. As he spoke, he nodded slightly towards the city lord Langyu who was called out by his name and said, "Just step over my corpse." The inscription tower was lost, and Heavenly Wind Inscription City was disbanded. From now on, he would never be able to touch his most beloved inscription technique. The Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord felt that his life was meaningless. Even if he lost, he would do his best. Even if he were to die, he would die standing. Master. Hearing his voice, Song Qing was instantly dumbfounded. With his master's strength, how could he possibly gamble with the people of Langyu Inscription City? Chapter 2294. Fighting with Langyu City like this was equivalent to courting death. Song Qing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The reason why he stood out to let the people of Langyu City accept the challenge was to stall for time and wait for Luo Qingtong to come. However, because he couldn't expose Luo Qingtong's identity and was afraid that the city lord wouldn't believe him, he didn't tell them about this matter. Thus, from the beginning to the end, he was the only one who knew that Luo Qingtong would come to help their Heavenly Wind Inscription City. With the young girl's monstrous talent, she might be able to help their Heavenly Wind Inscription City win a miracle. However, Song Qing had never thought that he would drag his master, the City Lord of Heavenly Wind Inscription City, into this. Thinking of this, he hurriedly wanted to explain to the City Lord. However, before he could open his mouth, the City Lord and the others on the other side had already sneered. All right. Lu Zhitong, who was also the City Lord of Lengyu City, looked at the City Lord and the others who stood out and said coldly, "Since you all want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. However, Zhang Tianhong, you have to consider it carefully." He looked at the City Lord and sneered, "Although the inscription tower doesn't allow casualties, someone like you can't even use the slightest bit of inscription strength. Even if you accidentally die inside, you can't blame the people of Lengyu City." As he spoke, the expression in his eyes was extremely cold. "There are so many of you here, you have to watch carefully. When the time comes, don't come looking for our Lengyu City to settle the score. We won't admit it." As he spoke to here, his words were already filled with cold killing intent. This Zhang Tianhong, there was a path to heaven, but he didn't take it. Instead, he barged into hell. She was already worried about him. With Zhang Tianhong's teaching ability, other than that trash Song Qing who couldn't be taught no matter how hard he tried, everyone who received his teachings were all outstanding inscriptionists in the 6-star region. In terms of overall strength, the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City would definitely crush their Lengyu City. Thus, even if she used the bet to force Heavenly Wind Inscription City to disband and didn't allow them to touch the inscription technique again, Lengyu Inscription City Lord's heart was still not at ease. He was afraid that the people of Sky Wind Inscription City would rise again and help the people of other inscription cities to seize the inscription tower of Lengyu Inscription City. At that time, without Master Chen's help, the people of Cold Jade Inscription City might not be able to deal with them. However, it was different now. The Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord had requested to join the challenge. With his current situation where he had lost all his inscription power, if anything were to happen to him, it would have nothing to do with Lengyu Inscription City. At that time, they would be able to kill Zhang Tianhong in the inscription tower and they wouldn't have to be afraid of the Inscription Association's investigation. Thinking of this, a bloodthirsty killing intent flashed in the eyes of the City Lord. Hearing his words, how could the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City not know what he was planning? Immediately, they all looked at him furiously. At this moment, Tian Feng Inscription City Lord's voice rang out. All right. He had already disregarded his life and death, so he naturally wouldn't care what Lengyu Inscription City Lord was planning. Song Qing was about to interrupt Tian Feng Inscription City Lord's words, but he didn't have the time. Chapter 2295. Master, oh Master. I'm just stalling for time. I'm not going to fight to the death with the people of Lengyu Inscription City. There's still hope for the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City. Song Qing wanted to cry but had no tears. He never thought that things would develop to such a stage. He hurriedly shouted, "No, no." He definitely could not let his master take the risk. It was fine if it was the other inscriptionists of Heavenly Wind Inscription City. In any case, when the challenge began, they would definitely enter together. But his master no longer had any inscription skills, so he definitely could not enter. My master can't enter. He shouted loudly at the people of Lengyu Inscription City. Humph, your master has already agreed. Song Qing, what qualifications do you have to disagree? Lengyu Inscription City Lord looked at him with disdain and said coldly, why don't you take a look at yourself? A person who wasn't even a beginner inscription master, what right did he have to make a fuss here? Did he really think that he was someone important? Lengyu Inscription City Lord's words rang out, and in an instant, Song Chang's face flushed red. He gritted his teeth and was about to continue speaking when at this moment, a cold, slightly hoarse and clear voice of a youth floated over from the crowd not far away. "People of Langyu Inscription City, I'm afraid you've misunderstood. What my master means is that with just you guys, you're not worth the master ancestor's injury. It's enough for him to deal with you guys." "Master, don't you think so?" As this voice rang out, Song Qing instantly jumped up. "Ah, ah, 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 ah." His words were only halfway through when he suddenly paused. The word brother was forcefully poured back down his throat along with his saliva. In an instant, Song Qing choked on his own saliva and coughed violently. But even so, his eyes, which were so frightened that they were round, did not leave the figure that walked out from the crowd. Oh my God! His precious disciple, his peerless and obedient disciple, how did she become a man? A youth walked out from the crowd. His figure was graceful and elegant. He held the fan in his left hand. His jade-colored skin and the ivory handle were mixed together. It was hard to tell which was whiter. The young man's face was covered by a dark golden mask that covered most of his face, only revealing a pair of eyes that were like stars and moons. The starlight inside was so bright that it could compete with the sun and the moon. The corners of his eyes were slightly raised, giving off an indescribable sense of evil and unbridled indulgence, as well as a cold aura. Under the mask, her lips were as red as fire, and the red was reflected on her perfect, jade-white chin. When the corners of her lips curled up slightly, it was indescribably breathtaking. Even though they couldn't see the face under the mask, they could still feel that such a young man was incomparably beautiful and stunning. However, what Song Qing noticed was the Adam's apple on his precious disciple's throat. Ow, 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 oh my God! The world was a fantasy. Oh my God! How did his precious disciple become a man? Disciple? You didn't tell me that you would become a man. Chapter 2296. What's going on? How did Luo Qingtong become like this? Disciple, you told me that you wanted to get a new identity, but you didn't say that you wanted to transform into a living person. Song Cheng's eyes were glazed over. Luo Qingtong's figure had already arrived in front of him. She raised her hand and tapped Song Cheng's shoulder with her folding fan. With a smile, she said coldly, "What's the matter? Master, are you too happy that you don't recognize Xie Qi anymore?" Luo Qingtong's words implied that she was introducing her new identity to Song Qing. She didn't think that she would obtain something like the phantom form pill, so she didn't have time to inform Song Qing of her new identity. However, a man's identity was indeed more convenient for her to hide her identity. Even if the enemies of the Immortal Slayer Palace suspected her identity, they would never think that she was the disciple that Song Qing had summoned from the true Spill Continent, Luo Qingtong. In fact, if it weren't for the fact that Song Qing had summoned her and caused such a big commotion that almost the entire city knew about it, Luo Qingtong wouldn't have painstakingly concealed her identity. It was always better to prepare for a rainy day than to deal with trouble when they came knocking on your door. Luo Qingtong had faced countless pursuits and naturally knew what the best way to deal with these troubles was. That was to never give others a chance to catch your flaws and weaknesses. All threats, she would nip them in the bud. She would never give anyone a chance to take advantage of her. If she didn't even have this little bit of caution, she wouldn't have been able to live to become a supreme technique master in her previous life. Therefore, the moment she obtained the phantom form pill formula, Luo Qingtong changed her inner thoughts. She replaced her previous plan with the identity of Xie Qi. As for the identity that Song Qing had prepared for her, as long as she changed her gender and name, and made some small changes, it would be fine. Wasn't that right? Luo Qingtong thought so and suddenly smiled. She raised her hand and fanned herself, covering half of her face. "I'm not late, right? Master?" Hearing Luo Qingtong's words, Song Qing finally reacted. He clutched his heart. Luckily, he hadn't been scared to death by this ever-changing disciple of his. However, Luo Qingtong's last sentence instantly pulled his attention back. He hurriedly said, I'm not late. It was fine as long as his precious disciple was here. As for whether it was a man or a woman, forget it, it didn't affect her status as his disciple. Song Qing felt that if he continued to bicker with Luo Qingtong, he would be shocked in the future. This disciple of his had too many tricks up his sleeve. She could even transform into a man. While Song Cheng was thinking, the people of Cold Jade Inscription City looked at Luo Qingtong and coldly said, Who are you? You actually dare to interfere in the matters of our Cold Jade Inscription City and Heavenly Wind Inscription City? They looked suspiciously at Luo Qingtong and Song Qing, wondering when the latter had accepted another disciple. Moreover, he was so arrogant and boastful. Let Song Qing replace the Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord to fight with them. They could crush him with just one hand, okay? The Cold Jade Inscription City Lord's face was even colder. Just as he was about to force Zhang Tianhong to enter the inscription tower and fight to the death, Xie Qi appeared out of nowhere and cut off their words. At this moment, they couldn't say that the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City were going back on their words. However, equals. Chapter 2297. He couldn't just bluff his way out like this. Thinking about it, he sneered and said, Alright, let Song Qing replace Zhang Tianhong, right? Sure. He said slowly, then looked at Luo Qingtong and the others with a cold expression and said, However, since you guys are so confident that he can replace Zhang Tianhong, he must have had some fortuitous encounter in the past 2 days, right? As expected of someone who successfully learned the inscription technique in 12 years. His face was full of ridicule as he said to Song Qing, Since your inscription technique has improved, then we'll let you replace Zhang Tianhong. But, when he said this, he dragged his voice and looked at Song Qing and the others with ill intentions. If you guys lose to us, then it means that what you said just now was a complete lie. At that time, Zhang Tianhong will kill himself for his cowardice and the shamelessness of Heavenly Wind Inscription City. How about it? Lengyu Inscription City Lord looked at Luo Qingtong's people with a sinister expression and laughed loudly. Do you dare to agree? Ha! His voice was savage, and his face was full of coldness as he looked at Luo Qingtong and the others. A group of ignorant fellows actually thought that they could easily bluff their way out. No matter who he used as a substitute, Zhang Tianhong would still die. It was not easy for the other party to give him an opportunity. How could he not seize it? Lengyu Inscription City Lord sneered. When Song Cheng and the others heard his words, they were all furious. Damn it, simply shameless. Song Cheng was so angry that his eyes turned red. These people from Lengyu Inscription City clearly wanted to kill his master. They were 2F** King shameless. And his heart was also filled with guilt. It was all his fault. If only he had told his master in advance. However, Song Qing also knew that unless he saw it with his own eyes, Zhang Tianhong and the others would not believe him if he just told them how powerful Luo Qingtong was. The reason why they agreed to let him open the array of Heavenly Wind Inscription City to search for someone. It was because if the inscription tower changed owners, Heavenly Wind Inscription City would cease to exist. At that time, the power of the inscription array would be useless even if it was kept. That was why he went with the flow and agreed to let him use it to look for people. It was just to fulfill his filial piety. Song Cheng's heart ached at the thought of this. His master was such a good person. But why was it that good people always had bad karma? As he was thinking, he heard Luo Qingtong's faint voice. Sure. Luo Qingtong looked coldly at Lengyu Mingwen and the others. They wanted to use her words to kill the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City. He could only say that they were too naive. Luo Qingtong, this stepping stone, was not so easy to step on. Thinking about it, Luo Qingtong's lips curled into a smile. Then she said, "What if we win? City Lord Lengyu, you maliciously slandered the reputation of our heavenly wind inscription city and the character of my martial ancestor. Shouldn't you also commit suicide to atone for your crimes?" The smile on her lips was cold. "Humph, brat who's still wet behind the ears, you want to scare me with just these two sentences." City Lord Lengyu Mingwen looked at Luo Qingtong with a cold smile on his face, his heart filled with disdain. A little brat who only knew a little sharp tongue thought that he would be able to frighten him. Unfortunately, if it was anyone else, he might really suspect that there was a trap in his words. Chapter 2298. Lengyu Inscription City Lord looked at Song Qing who was beside Luo Qingtong with disdain. His face was full of disdain and contempt for him. Such a trash. When he went out to train and break through, he was lucky and luckily learned a little inscription technique, but that was it. With his lousy talent, how could he represent Zhang Tianhong and win against him and the others? Not to mention that they have Master Qin behind them. As Lengyu Inscription City Lord thought this, he felt even more contempt in his heart. However, it was related to his life, and this brat who came out of nowhere was indeed a little strange. As Lengyu Inscription City Lord thought this, he immediately said cunningly, "Okay. However, Song Cheng has to defeat me personally. Otherwise, I won't admit that his inscription technique is comparable to Zhang Tianhong's." Sinisterly saying that he would never lose, Lengyu Inscription City Lord looked at Luo Qingtong and the others with a cold and proud expression and said, "As long as Song Qing can defeat me personally, not to mention committing suicide to apologize, even if you ask all of us from Lengyu Inscription City to cripple our own inscription techniques, we won't even blink an eye." Before he finished speaking, Luo Qingtong's voice had already sounded out with a light laugh. "Okay, I'll bet with you." As she spoke, she turned around and said to everyone present, "Everyone, you heard it. The people of Lengyu Inscription City slandered us from Tianfeng Inscription City. Promise yourself, if they really slandered us, then Lengyu Inscription City Lord will apologize with his death. In addition, the people of Lengyu Inscription City will cripple their own inscription techniques. All of you, listen carefully." As soon as Luo Qingtong said this, Lengyu Inscription City Lord was so angry that his mouth almost twisted. Who the hell slandered the people of Tianfeng Inscription City? It was obviously the truth. How could that trash, Song Qing, be a match for him? The other party actually said that they slandered them. How shameless. Lengyu Inscription City Lord could be considered to have experienced the grievances of the people of Tianfeng Inscription City. When Song Qing heard Luo Qingtong's words, he immediately panicked. In front of everyone, he couldn't say much, but in private, he fiercely tugged on Luo Qingtong's sleeve and pulled her down. He lowered his voice beside her ear and urgently said, "Disciple. No, my dear disciple, how can I defeat Lu Zhidong? Disciple, let's not joke around anymore. Heavenly Wind Inscription City can't take this loss." Previously, when Song Qing heard that the old city lord was going to commit suicide, he couldn't even stand it. Not to mention that Luo Qingtong and Lengyu Inscription were going to cripple the members of both sides. Damn, City Lord Lengyu is so shameless. Although he was the one who said that if he lost, the people of Lengyu Inscription City would cripple their own inscription techniques, Luo Qingtong didn't say anything. However, with Lengyu's sinister personality, he would definitely use this as a reason to attack Heavenly Wind Inscription City. Song Qing didn't want Tianfeng Inscription City Lord to go on stage, but he couldn't go on stage himself either. He was really trash. After learning inscription techniques for so many years, Song Qing had long been disheartened by his own inscription techniques. It wasn't that he was belittling himself. In this life, he really had no fate with inscription techniques. To be able to learn some shallow inscription techniques from Luo Qingtong, he was already overjoyed. He really didn't wish for anything else. Chapter 2299. Song Qing bitterly said to Luo Qingtong, "Quick, let's think of a way to go back on our words and reject this matter. My precious disciple, be good." Song Qing was muttering to Luo Qingtong. On the other side, Lengyu Inscription City was originally angry that Luo Qingtong's words were wrong. Now that she saw him approaching Luo Qingtong and speaking urgently, she suddenly sneered. She didn't have time to correct Luo Qingtong's words and said loudly, "That's right. Everything is as Xie Qi said. People of Heavenly Wind Inscription City, please." Following Lengyu Inscription City Lord's voice, Luo Qingtong also looked at Song Qing and blinked her eyes. She shrugged and said, "It's too late, Master." As she spoke, she lightly patted Song Chang's right shoulder with the fan in her hand and said, "Maybe a miracle will happen." "Master, don't you think so?" Luo Qingtong's smile was evil. When the corners of her lips were slightly raised, it carried a sense of elegance. She was completely in the posture of a man and was used to disguising herself. When she smiled like this, there wasn't the slightest bit of pretentiousness. Instead, there was an indescribable carefree and unrestrained feeling. When Song Qing heard her words, he was about to cry. "Master, all the inscription masters of Heavenly Wind Inscription City, I've let you down." Song Qing had never hated himself for being so useless like now. He hated himself for being so useless. If it wasn't for this, Lengyu Inscription City Lord wouldn't have used him to force him because he was sure that he would lose. That's why he dared to be so unrestrained. He had let down his master and all the inscription masters of Inscription City. Their future was going to be destroyed in his hands. Thinking about this, Song Chang's face turned pale. He was like a ghost as he followed Luo Qingtong and the inscription masters of Heavenly Wind Inscription City into the inscription tower. When the latter and the others saw him like this, they couldn't bear it and immediately comforted him in a low voice. "Song Qing, you don't have to blame yourself too much. It's not your fault. Yes, even if you don't show up, Lu Zhidong and the others won't let us go. After Heavenly Wind Inscription City disbands, who knows how he will deal with us in the dark. He won't give us a chance to rise again. So, it doesn't matter even if you lose." When they stood out with City Lord Zhang, they had already disregarded themselves, so why would they care about their inscriptions being crippled? Song Qing had already done very well. It was not his fault that he was not strong enough. The Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord did not blame him. Therefore, when Luo Qingtong opened her mouth to discuss the bet with Lengyu, he didn't say anything. Otherwise, if the Sky Wind Inscription City Lord had spoken and insisted on entering the inscription tower, the bet between Luo Qingtong and Lengyu Inscription City Lord would not have been established. However, he was willing to give Song Qing this opportunity. Let him fight in his place. This disciple of his, who had zero inscription talent, had always been very sincere to him. The Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord didn't want his sincere heart to be wasted. Therefore, he had been silent the entire time. When Luo Qingtong and the others entered the inscription tower, the people of Lengyu Inscription City had already reached the first floor and was close to the second floor. Standing on the stairs, Master Chen, who had been hiding among the inscription masters of Lengyu Inscription City, suddenly spoke. "Who allowed you to act on your own just now?" When he spoke, Lengyu Inscription City Lord's heart skipped a beat. Chapter 2300. Only then did he remember that there was still a great Buddha in his team. Originally, Master Chen was very dissatisfied that he had agreed to the bet with Song Qing without permission, causing them to delay the inscription tower for 3 years. Now, he had been provoked by Song Cheng's disciple to make a bet with them. As Lengyu Inscription City Lord thought about it, cold sweat instantly dripped down his forehead. He looked at Master Chen and stuttered. However, he quickly found a suitable excuse. Master Chen, I wanted to vent your anger for you. After finding a reason, Lengyu Inscription City Lord hurriedly said, Look, that Zhang Tianhong didn't know how to appreciate favors. This inscription tower should have fallen into our hands. He would rather self-destruct the inscription mark in his body than admit defeat. He even almost injured you. How can I tolerate this? As he spoke, he smiled at Master Chen and said, Master Chen, don't worry. I put in a lot of effort into this bet. With that Song Qing, not to mention defeating me, even if any of my inscription apprentices came out, they might be able to crush him. You really don't have to worry about this. As his words rang out, Master Chen snorted coldly and didn't say anything. He indeed knew that it was impossible with Song Chang's strength. If it wasn't for this, he wouldn't have remained silent and allowed Lengyu Inscription City Lord, Luo Qingtong, and the others to make the bet. He spoke now because he was dissatisfied that Lengyu Inscription City Lord didn't inform him and made the decision on his own. It wasn't that he was dissatisfied with this bet. On the contrary, he was very satisfied. If Zhang Tianhong didn't know how to appreciate favors, he would have obtained the item in the inscription tower 15 years ago. Let's go. Just as Lengyu Inscription City Lord was holding his breath and didn't dare to breathe loudly, Master Chen snorted coldly and walked directly to the second floor of the inscription tower. The first floor of the inscription tower wasn't used for fighting. It was meaningless to fight with the people of Tianfeng Inscription City here. Moreover, the outcome of the inscription tower was determined by who could climb the highest and stay the longest in the inscription tower. Master Chen was already impatient to beat around the bush with the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City. He wanted to directly obtain the inscription tower and let the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City know that their resistance was futile. Good. Let's go. When Lengyu Inscription City Lord heard this, he immediately heaved a sigh of relief. He quickly wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and followed. For some reason, he was afraid of Master Chen. He had a feeling that Master Chen was not as simple as he appeared to be. If she had listened to him, she might have been able to ensure her safety. If he disobeyed the other party, it wouldn't be difficult for the other party to change Lengyu Inscription City Lord. Although this feeling had no basis, inexplicably, Cold Jade Inscription City Lord felt that his intuition wouldn't be wrong. That was why he was so cautious when dealing with Master Chen. He was afraid that the other party would blame him. The group entered the second floor. At this moment, Luo Qingtong and the others were walking towards the entrance of the stairs from the first floor to the second floor. However, Chapter 2301. They had only walked 100 meters on the first floor when they saw Song Chang's face turn pale. The rules of the inscription tower were very strange. The tower battle was also very different. It wasn't a fight to the death the moment they entered. Instead, they had to continuously climb the tower. Whoever reached the highest floor and stayed there for the longest time would be the winner. Of course, it wasn't that simple. This was because the process of climbing the tower could be destroyed. Both parties could attack each other while climbing the tower. Not only that, during the process of climbing the tower, the pressure and aura of the tower would constantly suppress and obstruct them. This pressure and aura was also the source of power for the inscription mark. Only those who could withstand the pressure and aura of the inscription tower would be able to use the power of the inscription tower for their own use. The higher they went, the stronger the pressure and the less power they could use from the inscription tower. At that time, it would depend on whose attainments in the inscription technique were deeper. They would be able to resist the pressure and use more power to injure the other party and expel them from the tower. Those who were injured would not be able to withstand the pressure of the inscription tower and would be expelled from the tower. This was the true meaning of the tower battle of the inscription tower. At this moment, Song Cheng was enduring the pressure and aura of the inscription tower. His voice was panting. His face was as white as paper. Among the group, he was the weakest in inscription techniques. Therefore, the moment he entered the first floor of the inscription tower, he felt an extremely strong pressure. The first floor of the inscription tower was not for inscription masters to fight. It was for inscription masters who had just entered the inscription tower to adapt and familiarize themselves with the rules and aura of the tower. Generally speaking, as long as an inscription master had some talent, it wouldn't be a problem to pass the first floor. However, Song Cheng's inscription talent was too weak. He had already done his best, but he was still crawling on the spot like a turtle. A group of people from Heavenly Wind Inscription City looked at him worriedly. A disciple of Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord advised, "Junior Brother Ching, why don't you just admit defeat and leave? Don't worry, we won't blame you." "Yes, Junior Brother Ching, you have already done your best. Don't force yourself anymore. If you continue like this, you'll be heavily injured by the aura of the inscription tower." "No." Song Ching shook his head. He wouldn't allow himself to be so useless and weak. He wouldn't even give it a try before admitting defeat. This was the first time Song Ching had entered the inscription tower. He wasn't an inscription master before, so naturally, he couldn't enter the inscription tower. Now that he had learned some inscription techniques, he was able to enter the inscription tower. However, he didn't expect that it would be so difficult for him in the inscription tower. Every step was an obstacle, and every step was like there were countless iron plates in front of him, blocking his advance. While Song Ching gritted his teeth and walked forward, Luo Qingtong was also feeling the suppressive aura in the inscription tower. This oppressive aura came from the top of the tower. He could feel that the pressure on the first level wasn't especially strong. As long as one had a bit of talent in inscription patterns, they would be able to survive. Furthermore, he was able to gain strength from this oppressive aura. After Luo Qingtong withstood the pressure, she found that she could use the power of the aura. Chapter 2302. As Luo Qingtong's fingertip landed, countless energy auras surged out from the first floor of the inscription tower and rushed into the inscription pattern drawn by Luo Qingtong's fingertip. In an instant, the inscription pattern drawn by Luo Qingtong lit up and kept spinning in the air. Swoosh! As Luo Qingtong's fingertips trembled, the inscription mark was quickly dissipated into nothingness. As expected, the aura in the inscription tower can form a pattern on its own. Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. Her bright eyes were shining brightly at this moment. Her eyes, which were like the stars and the moon, were pulsing with a blood-red light. Ever since she entered the Holy Venerate realm, Luo Qingtong was able to control the blood-red light in her eyes. Her blood-red eyes flickered in the deepest part of her eyes. Ordinary people couldn't see it. Only when Luo Qingtong was extremely excited and couldn't control herself would her blood-red eyes reveal themselves. Otherwise, in the 24th century, Luo Qingtong's blood-red eyes would have been treated as a monster. Of course, the reason why her special ability was exposed back then was because her blood-red eyes were too shocking when they were awakened. But it was different after coming to this alternate world. The people here only thought that Luo Qingtong's eyes were a little strange and didn't pay too much attention to it. Therefore, Luo Qingtong didn't deliberately hide her ocular ability in the past. In addition, she wasn't strong enough back then. Even if she wanted to hide it, she couldn't. Otherwise, why would she be hunted down for so many years in the 24th century? It was because her blood-red eyes couldn't be hidden. Now that Luo Qingtong's strength had increased to the Holy Venerate realm, the power of her blood-red eyes had also increased. Luo Qingtong could control the color of her eyes. Her subconscious told her that unless it was necessary, she shouldn't reveal her unique blood-red eyes in the outer realm. Because Luo Qingtong's ocular ability was close to mastery, the blood-red light in her eyes became brighter and brighter. It was no longer misty and blood-red like before. It was an extremely beautiful red jade color. The current Luo Qingtong's pupils were completely red even if she didn't use her ocular ability. Like a red agate, it was dazzling and beautiful to the extreme. It was also extremely bewitching. It was very easy to expose one's identity if it was too iconic. Luo Qingtong knew this from her previous life. She looked towards the top of the tower with the blood-red light. The suppressive aura was the strongest among them. Luo Qingtong could faintly feel that there seemed to be something within that was attracting her. Strange, why is there something attracting me in the inscription tower? Luo Qingtong felt that there was a faint restlessness in her body and felt strange. Could it be because of her inscription talent? Luo Qingtong raised her brows as she thought about it. At this moment, plop. A heavy muffled sound suddenly came from beside her. It was Song Cheng who knelt on the ground, sweating profusely. He could no longer withstand the pressure of the first level of the inscription tower. And they were only close to the stairs to the second level. They hadn't even touched the stairs. Sweat fell from Song Cheng's forehead like a waterfall, drenching his entire body. His legs were trembling, but he couldn't get up no matter what. The lives of the people of Tianfeng Inscription City and his master were on his shoulders, but he was so useless. Why was he so useless? Why was his inscription talent so poor? Chapter 2303. Junior Brother. The moment Song Qing knelt down, the inscription masters of Heavenly Wind Inscription City all gathered around him. They looked at Song Qing, whose legs were trembling as he desperately tried to stand up. Their hearts ached. Junior brother, you have already done very well. Give up. That's right. Junior brother, don't persist any longer. No one will blame you. If it weren't for Song Qing, the Inscription Tower and Heavenly Wind Inscription City would have ceased to exist 3 years ago. Perhaps the people here had looked down on Song Qing before and complained that he had lost face for Heavenly Wind Inscription City. But now, they looked at the man who was being suppressed by the pressure of the Inscription Tower until his bones were creaking. It was as if he could be crushed into powder at any time. There was only respect in their hearts. A person's degree of respect was not determined by talent or aptitude. That was too shallow. Even if Song Qing was still a waste, he was still a waste that they respected. Everyone tried to persuade him, but Song Qing refused to give up. If he was a person who gave up so easily, he wouldn't have spent nearly 12 years in the true Spill continent just for that last glimmer of hope of breaking through. If he didn't have that last glimmer of perseverance, perhaps he wouldn't have met Luo Qingtong. He would never give up. Song Qing stood up with a bang. At the same time, the powerful pressure of the inscription tower fiercely bombarded his body. If one's inscription skills were not strong enough, forcefully resisting the pressure of the inscription tower would only lead to the most terrible result. His bones would be crushed by the inscription tower and thrown out. Just as the pressure of the inscription tower was about to hit Song Cheng's body, a jade-white hand landed on Song Cheng's shoulder. Xie Qi. Seeing Luo Qingtong's hand on Song Cheng's shoulder, the other inscription masters of Heavenly Wind Inscription City suddenly shouted. Their voices were filled with panic. Quick! Let go of him. It's impossible to resist the pressure here. It's also impossible to help others resist it. Otherwise, they would be suppressed by the inscription tower and thrown out. At that time, both of them would suffer together. A group of inscription masters from Heavenly Wind Inscription City cried out in alarm and hurriedly asked Luo Qingtong to release Song Qing. However, Luo Qingtong turned a deaf ear to them. The blood-red pupils in her eyes spun, and she could easily see that the oppressive aura around Song Qing had already weakened, turning into a power that he could use. Song Qing had broken through under the pressure. He had officially become an inscription master, and was no longer an inscription apprentice. Who? Luo Qingtong supported Song Qing. The latter was already gasping for breath. He was so weak that he almost fell to the ground. Luo Qingtong looked at the nervous and surprised people from Heavenly Wind Inscription City and said, "Martial uncles and seniors, please go up first. Don't let the people from Lengyu Inscription City take the lead. My master and I will take a rest on the first floor." All right. The group of inscription masters from Heavenly Wind Inscription City also saw that Song Qing seemed to have broken through. They sighed in their hearts. They did not expect Song Cheng's willpower to be so shocking. He actually broke through to the level of a beginner inscription master in the inscription tower with such poor talent. However, that was all. It was basically impossible for Song Qing to step into the second floor. Chapter 2304. Thinking about this, everyone sighed in their hearts. If Song Cheng's inscription talent wasn't that bad and was just a little stronger, even if it was only mediocre inscription talent, with his perseverance, he would definitely be able to achieve great things. Who knows how powerful an inscription master he would become in the future. What a pity, what a pity. Everyone shook their heads and felt pity in their hearts. At the same time, they nodded in agreement with Luo Qingtong's words. The young man was right. At this moment, the members of Lengyu City were already a step ahead. If they were allowed to ascend to the higher levels of the inscription tower ahead of time and stay there for a sufficient amount of time, then they would lose for sure. No one was willing to lose to the inscription tower. Even if they still lost the inscription tower in the end, they would still give it a try with all their strength. Thus, after hearing Luo Qingtong's words, they immediately asked Luo Qingtong to take care of Song Qing and persuade him to stop trying to be brave. Then, they chased up to the higher levels. After the people from Heavenly Wind Inscription City left, Luo Qingtong helped Song Qing sit on the stairs from the first level to the second level. Master. After Luo Qingtong helped Song Qing sit on the stairs, she immediately spoke. However, just as she opened her mouth, she was interrupted by Song Qing. "If you want to persuade me to give up, then forget it." Song Qing waved his hand weakly. "Disciple, master can do anything you want. Just this point alone won't do. Don't worry about me, go up with them. Don't let the people from Lengyu City succeed." Even if he really failed in the end, at least the inscription tower would be preserved. It was a pity that the people from Heavenly Wind Inscription City and his master would be unlucky with him. As Song Qing thought about this, his heart felt sour. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's voice sounded. "You're thinking too much, master." Luo Qingtong was in a bad mood. "Do I look like the kind of person who would persuade you to give up?" She was the kind of person who would never give up on something she wanted to do. "I just want to ask you, do you believe in me?" As soon as Luo Qingtong's words came out, Song Qing immediately looked up at her. "Disciple." His voice was trembling. "You have a way to help me, help me." He stuttered for a long time, but couldn't say the last word. He was afraid that this was just an unrealistic fantasy and an illusion. But he also wanted to believe that this was the hope that Luo Qingtong gave him. When Luo Qingtong had asked Luo Qingtong, Luo Qingtong. Luo 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 Luo, Luo 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 Luo, Luo 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 O Luo, Luo 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 Luan O Luo Luo, Luo to Luo Luo Luo. She watched as his lips trembled, but he just couldn't open his mouth. Luo Qingtong was both angry and amused. Was there a need to be so exaggerated and nervous? She raised a finger to Song Qing and said, "If you're willing, nod your head or blink your eyes. If you're not willing to believe in me, then you don't have to do anything." As soon as Luo Qingtong said this, Song Cheng's eyes almost flew out. Chapter 2305. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. She really didn't know what to say. Her master was good at everything, but sometimes, when he made a mistake, it was unbearable. Wasn't it just a sentence? Was there a need to make him so nervous? However, Luo Qingtong didn't know that to Song Qing, it was the salvation of the entire inscription city. Quick, quick, quick. Disciple, do you have any way to help me? Tell me quickly. After a long while, Song Qing regained his senses and hurriedly grabbed Luo Qingtong and asked. His inscription talent was poor. If he wanted to win, he had to raise his inscription technique to the level of a senior inscription master. However, although Lengyu's City Lord's strength wasn't as strong as Tianfeng's City Lord, it wasn't a problem for him to deal with the other 6-star regions. Song Qing really couldn't think of any way that Luo Qingtong could help him. Even if Luo Qingtong was an immortal, she couldn't possibly turn herself from a trash into a high-level inscriptionist in such a short period of time, right? She could even be one of the best high-level inscriptionists. In fact, Song Qing had completely underestimated Luo Qingtong. Who said that she couldn't do it? In the past, she might not have been able to do it. But now, after she recovered her strength, she used some time to sort out and improve her eye technique. It was also because of this that Luo Qingtong came a little late at the inscription plaza. Because she had activated a new eye technique. In Luo Qingtong's previous life, this eye technique was of little value to her. Of course, it wasn't completely useless. It still helped Luo Qingtong a little. When she was building her own secret power and business empire, it came in handy. But it was only a little. In that world, Luo Qingtong didn't really trust and was willing to nurture anyone. But this world was different. Luo Qingtong looked at Song Qing and said, "Master, look into my eyes." Later, no matter what appears in your mind, don't resist it. The moment Luo Qingtong said that, Song Qing's expression froze. Because following his gaze, he saw Luo Qingtong's bloodshot eyes. In an instant, the blood-red light in the girl's eyes began to spin rapidly. His blood-red eyes, which were originally like red jade and agate, were like blazing suns that were bursting with countless flames in this violent rotation. It was almost blinding. Shwa! A ray of light shot out from Luo Qingtong's eyes and into Song Qing's. It was really a projection. Luo Qingtong's eyes seemed to shoot a blood-red ray of light into Song Qing's eyes. Then, he felt a sharp pain in his eyes. A blood-red seed-like thing appeared in his eyes. Following the appearance of this blood-red seed, Song Qing felt as if something had been implanted in his mind. He subconsciously wanted to resist. But Luo Qingtong's previous words rang in his ears. In an instant, he gritted his teeth fiercely. He believed in his disciple. This time, Luo Qingtong came to Tianfeng Inscription City specially because he asked her to help. The girl didn't need to take on this matter. But for her own sake. Just for the grace of her guidance back then, she had agreed. Chapter 2306. As Song Qing thought about it, he immediately let go of his mind and allowed the thing that had intruded into his mind to directly implant itself into his soul. It was only when this thing entered his soul that Song Qing realized what it was. In an instant, he sucked in a deep breath. Oh my God! He was shocked as he used his mind to look inside his mind. In his mind, a blood-red seed was spinning rapidly. Among them, profound explanations and demonstrations about the inscription patterns appeared in his mind in detail. Song Qing looked at the blood-red seed as it spun. He only felt that the explanations and demonstrations regarding inscription patterns had completely entered his heart and soul and were deeply engraved in his mind. Song Qing found it hard to explain this feeling. He only knew that this blood-red seed created by Luo Qingtong had opened up all his understanding of inscription patterns. Wang! As the blood-colored seed spun in the air, Song Qing received the knowledge of inscription patterns. His heart was shocked to the extreme. This was inscription talent. Or rather, this was the inscription pattern knowledge that Luo Qingtong knew herself. But at this moment, she had imparted it to him. Song Qing only felt that he had learned it all by himself in an instant. He only regained his senses when the blood-red color in Luo Qingtong's eyes disappeared. SSSSS, Song Qing stuttered for a long time but couldn't say the word brother. What did Luo Qingtong do to him? Why did he feel that he understood inscription patterns in an instant? He understood all the inscription pattern techniques in the blood-red seed. Master. Luo Qingtong smiled and looked at him, interrupting his stuttering. You can try to control the aura of the inscription tower now. Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. Her face was hidden under the golden mask. Even though her appearance couldn't be seen, it was still extremely evil and unscrupulous. What she had just used on Song Qing was the newest pupil technique that she had comprehended, sharing. Sharing all the knowledge and skills that she had comprehended. As long as she comprehended something, she could share it with the people around her. Let the other party have the same comprehension and talent as her. However, there was a time limit to this sharing. With Luo Qingtong's current strength, she could at most last for 6 hours if she shared the inscription pattern she had comprehended with Song Qing. In other words, 6 hours. However, this should be enough for Song Qing to challenge the tower and obtain victory. Song Qing was both surprised and delighted. He looked at Luo Qingtong, then tried to stand up and take a step forward. Boom! When he took a step forward, the pressure from the first level of the inscription tower surged towards him. Then, in the next second, Song Qing stood firmly. He stood still. Song Qing almost cried tears of joy. On this floor, it was almost difficult for him to move. It was all because his inscription talent wasn't enough. Song Qing knew this as well. However, his inscription talent was bestowed by the heavens and he had no way of changing it. Even if he had put in more effort than others, if his innate talent wasn't enough, it would seal off all his paths of improvement. However, at this moment, with the help of the blood-red seed that Luo Qingtong had implanted in his mind, Song Cheng's understanding of inscription patterns had increased. He had withstood this oppressive aura. Chapter 2307. Song Qing almost cried tears of joy. He looked at the energy and raised his hand. In an instant, the energy entered his body. Following his movements, an inscription pattern was drawn in midair. This inscription pattern was completely unfamiliar to Song Qing. He was sure that he had never seen this pattern before. He had never even learned it before. But at this moment, he was able to draw it so naturally and smoothly. Song Qing was pleasantly surprised and shocked to the extreme. He didn't know what was going on. How did Luo Qingtong do this? How could she improve someone's innate talent in an instant? And Song Qing felt that the innate talent in his body didn't belong to him. It belonged to Luo Qingtong. It belonged to his disciple. Song Qing felt that only Luo Qingtong could draw such a monstrous innate talent and such an unheard-of inscription pattern. In addition, Luo Qingtong asked him to look into her eyes and not resist. Song Qing immediately thought that Luo Qingtong had transferred her innate talent to him. Thinking of this, Song Qing was shocked. The worry in his heart overshadowed the shock. He hurriedly ran to Luo Qingtong's side and hurriedly asked, "You silly girl. Is my innate talent yours now? You gave me your innate talent. Where is your innate talent? You." Before Song Qing could finish his words, Luo Qingtong waved her hand and an inscription pattern appeared in front of him. "I'm fine, master." Luo Qingtong looked at Song Qing's shocked reaction and smiled. The latter, on the other hand, could do nothing but stare with his mouth agape. What the F asterisk CK? He looked at the inscription pattern that appeared beside Luo Qingtong and was shocked. What was going on? Luo Qingtong's innate talent had been transferred to him. She still had an innate talent. Then didn't she create an innate talent for him? She copied her innate talent for him. How did he do it? Song Qing was dumbfounded. He stared blankly at Luo Qingtong. He had no idea how she did it. This was inscription talent. Since ancient times, one's innate talent was destined. Just like how geniuses were born, it was impossible to change it with human effort. A lack of talent in martial arts could be compensated with other treasures of heaven and earth and the ability of the soul seal. But with their inscription talents, how could they make up for it? This was the same as alchemy talent and array formation talent. They were all fated from birth and couldn't be changed. Song Qing was shocked to the extreme. He pointed at Luo Qingtong and said, I, for a long time. Before he could say anything, a violent collision of energy suddenly came from the top floor of the inscription tower. Boom! The impact of the collision of these forces was particularly strong. Especially when Luo Qingtong and Song Qing were surrounded by the aura of the inscription tower. This feeling was even more obvious. Oh no, it's senior brother and the others. Song Chang's face turned solemn. He said coldly, they must have caught up with the people from Lang Yu's inscription city and fought with them. Disciple, let's go up quickly. As Song Qing spoke, he hurriedly rushed up. Chapter 2308. On the third floor. The people from Lang Yu Inscription City were confronting the people from Tianfeng Inscription City. You want to charge up with just the people from Tianfeng Inscription City? The people from Lang Yu Inscription City sneered. As they drew inscription patterns, they smashed towards the people from Tianfeng Inscription City and mocked them. In the inscription tower, one was not allowed to fight directly. They could only use inscription patterns to attack each other. The two parties involved in the attack would use inscription patterns to determine the victor. This was the dose seal that Song Qing and Luo Qingtong had mentioned before. Whoever produced the higher level inscription pattern would be able to win against the opponent. And the loser would naturally be expelled by the power of the inscription tower. Of course, because of the uniqueness of the dose seal, both parties who used inscription patterns would inevitably suffer some injuries. Most of these injuries came from the power of the explosion when the inscription patterns were lost. When the power of the inscription patterns exploded out, it would sometimes injure the nearby caster. Thus, it was normal to be injured in the battle of the inscription tower. Of course, there were also people who deliberately used inscription techniques to crush their opponents. They controlled it to a certain degree, not only preventing the opponent from being expelled by the inscription tower, but also causing the opponent to suffer serious injuries. Torturing the opponent like this. Right now, the people from Lang Yu Inscription City and Tianfeng Inscription City were in such a situation. The people from Lang Yu Inscription City sneered as they looked in the direction of the people from Tianfeng Inscription City. The power of the inscription patterns in their hands was just slightly stronger than the power of the people from Tianfeng Inscription City. Every time it hit their inscription patterns, the power of the explosion was like a sword that cut into the bodies of the people from Tianfeng Inscription City, causing them to bleed profusely without being expelled by the inscription tower. Ha! You people from Tianfeng Inscription City, resist. Why aren't you resisting? The people from Lang Yu Inscription City were extremely pleased. They looked at the people from Tianfeng Inscription City, their faces full of ridicule. Lang Yu Inscription City Lord and Master Chen were not among them. The two of them had already climbed up. Lengyu City Lord also brought along a few of his trusted subordinates, who were also high-level inscription masters from Lengyu City. The rest of the people stayed on the third floor to snipe the people from Inscription City. And most of the injuries on their bodies were caused by Lengyu Inscription City Lord and the others. You people from Lengyu Inscription City are shameless. An injured Sky-Wind Inscription City senior inscription master scolded as he struggled to defend against the inscription patterns blasted out by the Cold Jade Inscription City. With his strength, he wouldn't have been threatened by the people of Lengyu Inscription City. However, City Lord Lengyu and the others had purposely waited on the third floor and purposely injured them. Then, they would let these low and mid-level inscription masters of Cold Jade Inscription City humiliate them. This Heavenly Wind Inscription City's senior inscription master was so angry that his eyes turned red. Ha! What shameless! We're winning with our strength. That person from Cold Jade Inscription City laughed loudly. He felt proud in his heart. Don't you people from Heaven Wind Inscription City want to climb up? Didn't he want to win back the inscription tower? Climb! He laughed loudly, causing the surrounding people from Cold Jade Inscription City to burst into laughter. They had received orders from City Lord Lengyu to play with this group of people from Tianfeng Inscription City to death. Didn't they want to climb up? They wanted to block them here and let them watch in despair as the City Lord and the others won the inscription tower. It would be best if they could force their minds to collapse and kneel down to beg for mercy. Ha! The group of people from Cold Jade Inscription City attacked the people from Tianfeng Inscription City. Chapter 2309. An attack suddenly came from the back of the Lengyu Inscription City's people, which was the path from the second floor to the third floor. Bang! When the people from Lengyu Inscription City felt the attack, they immediately stopped laughing and coldly shouted towards the direction of Luo Qintong and the others. Who is it? The person who will make you all suffer. Following Song Cheng's voice, he and Luo Qintong instantly appeared on the stairs from the second floor to the third floor. Song Cheng's eyes were spitting fire. He looked at the arrogant people from Lengyu Inscription City in front of him and his eyes were extremely red. These bastards. After Song Cheng rushed to the second floor, he realized that there were no people from Lengyu Inscription City and Tianfeng Inscription City on the second floor. He hurriedly rushed towards the third floor. He didn't expect them to really be here. After hearing what the people from Lengyu Inscription City said, Song Cheng wished that he could kill them. The people from Lengyu Inscription City had gone too far. Not only did they want to snatch the inscription tower from Tianfeng Inscription City, they also wanted to block the people from Tianfeng Inscription City and let these people from Lengyu Inscription City who were weaker than them humiliate and crush them. Song Cheng looked at the wounds and blood on the bodies of the Tianfeng Inscription City's senior inscription masters and was about to die from anger. The inscription tower didn't allow anyone to injure others, unless the difference in strength was too great and they couldn't withstand the power of the inscription tower and died. However, the power of this kind of attack was measured by the inscription tower. Once the inscription tower determined that it was a malicious attack that caused death, the right to fight for the inscription tower would be taken away. Therefore, even if Song Cheng looked at the people from Lengyu Inscription City and wished that he could cut them into pieces, he couldn't do it in the inscription tower. When the people from Lengyu Inscription City saw him and Luo Qintong appear, their laughter became even more savage. Yo, our Tianfeng Inscription City's trash is here. His strength is not bad. He actually broke through the second floor and came up to the third floor. Let me guess, did he crawl up? A beginner inscription master from Cold Jade Inscription City looked at Song Cheng's miserable and sweaty appearance and laughed loudly. In Xiao Chen's opinion, Song Cheng had gone through a lot to reach the third floor. Now, he looked like he was putting on a brave front. However, who knew how much pressure he had suffered inside? As for Luo Qintong beside him, there was no need to care about her at all. He had no idea where this young man had come from. He had appeared beside Song Qing out of nowhere and stood up for him. The other party claimed to be his disciple. However, Song Qing was such a piece of trash. Even if his disciple had some talent, what was there to care about? Moreover, Luo Qingtong didn't look old, so they didn't need to worry about her. Given the other party's age, it was impossible for him to be a hidden reinforcement from Song City. Therefore, everyone looked in the direction of Song Qing and Luo Qingtong without fear. After loudly mocking Song Qing, the junior inscription master from Cold Jade Inscription City directly threw an inscription pattern at Song Qing. He wanted to see Song Qing fall to the ground in a sorry state. Song Qing was just a piece of trash from Tianfeng Inscription City. If he didn't have a fortuitous encounter outside, he wouldn't even be an inscription master. What right did he have to shout at him? As the junior inscription master from Cold Jade Inscription City thought about it, he sneered in his heart. Chapter 23:10. Song Qing rushing up was like walking right into a trap. Since he wanted to be unlucky, then they would fulfill his wish. However, just as the sneer and smugness appeared on his face, it instantly froze on his lips. How is this possible? He looked in front of him in shock. He saw Song Qing raise his hand and draw an inscription pattern to block the inscription pattern that he blasted out. Not only that, after the inscription pattern broke his inscription pattern, it rushed towards him. The inscription master from Cold Jade Inscription City looked in the direction that the inscription pattern was rushing towards and was dumbfounded. What was going on? That Heavenly Wind Inscription City's famous trash, Song Qing, actually blocked the inscription pattern that he blasted out. Not only that, he even blasted the inscription pattern that he blasted out and blasted it towards him. The inscription master from Cold Jade Inscription City was shocked. He couldn't believe it no matter what. He looked at the inscription pattern that was rushing towards him and suddenly raised his hand. In an instant, there was a loud bang and another inscription pattern blasted out from his hand to meet the inscription pattern that Song Qing had blasted out. Bang! The two inscription patterns collided in midair. With a bang, under the shocked and incredulous gazes of the crowd, the inscription pattern blasted out by the inscription master from Cold Jade Inscription City was instantly blasted into pieces. The inscription master from Cold Jade Inscription City let out a blood-curdling scream. After that, his body was cut by the energy that blasted out from the inscription pattern. Fresh blood spurted out and the inscription master from Cold Jade Inscription City fell to the ground. Looking at the inscription master from Cold Jade Inscription City's fallen body, the crowd from Cold Jade Inscription City and Heavenly Wind Inscription City were all shocked. They looked at Song Qing who was standing at the entrance of the staircase and their hearts were shocked to the extreme. Especially the crowd from Heavenly Wind Inscription City. They originally wanted to ask Song Qing to leave quickly and not suffer for nothing. However, they didn't expect that Song Qing would actually defeat the inscription master from Cold Jade Inscription City with just a raise of his hand. One had to know that if this battle result was placed on anyone else, it wouldn't make them so shocked. However, the person who did this was Song Qing. Junior apprentice brother Qing. The people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City were both surprised and happy. As for Song Qing, when he first made his move, he was still very nervous. However, when he saw the beginner-level inscription master from Cold Jade Inscription City that was defeated by him, his heart was filled with an indescribable excitement. He really did it. The inscription talent that his disciple passed to him was actually real. Song Qing could feel the ease with which he had just blasted out that attack. The flaws of the other party's inscription patterns were easily grasped by him. It was obvious that his inscription talent was above his opponent's. That was why he was able to see through the flaws in the other party's inscription pattern and break it with ease. Song Qing's heart was filled with excitement. He nodded towards the group of people from Heavenly Wind Inscription City and said coldly, Senior brother, all of you stand aside and let me deal with them. Song Chang's words were filled with great confidence. As for the other people in Cold Jade Inscription City, they had also recovered from their shock. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.